Hello, I'm Sandeep Ghosh, and you're watching the Ghosh Pot, my short takes on national politics and current affairs. This week, I'd like to talk about a few developments which are not necessarily just India-centric. It has international ramifications, especially in the context of the churn happening around the world, centering around the Ukraine-Russia crisis. First is about the series of visitors we've been getting, international dignitaries coming to making a beeline to India ever since the Ukraine crisis broke out. The latest being Boris Johnson, who came ostensibly on a state visit to discuss cooperation between the two countries, but I'm sure there was issues regarding the Ukraine crisis and India's position on that, which were also discussed. More significantly, the Prime Minister is leaving tomorrow, that's May 2nd, for a very whirlwind tour of Europe when he'll visit Germany, Denmark, and France. He has, in a statement, said certainly Ukraine will be on the agenda for discussion. It's significant he is going now because he's going to meet the new German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, and most importantly, Macron in France after his re-election. The Prime Minister, again, I suppose, will reiterate India's position, explaining our stand on various issues, including oil imports, which unfortunately, or fortunately rather, the Europeans cannot really fault India much because they are buying much more oil from Russia than what we are doing. But everything together, I think, underscores the rising importance of India in the global scheme of things. And this was reflected in the statements of our External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, not only in his press conference in the US when he was there some time ago, but more importantly, in a recent conference in Delhi, which is the Raisina Dialogues, where again he said India must get out of this old mindset of seeking approval of the world and be able to decide what is good for it. And therefore, in the Ukraine crisis, he has reiterated, while India's objectives to ensure peace through dialogue, to bringing both people on the table, but it's not necessarily through sanctions. We saw the outreach of Jaishankar also going to our neighboring countries, Maldives, earlier Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and all this together shows that India is now much more proactively engaged with the happenings around the world. This is an interesting development to my mind, though Modi's critics or the critics of the government have found, they think that much of this is actually optics and India is not really making a difference to India's standing. But I think it'll be naive to discount the importance of all these things. The Modi government is clearly moving on its own plan, whether one agrees with it or not. And one is seeing that journey very distinctly happening over the last 8 years. And we have, for the first time, come to a situation where, say, unlike our neighbor, Pakistan, when they stray offline from what the Western powers want, there is immediate intervention. In the case of India, there is, even if it is reluctant, acceptance, there is, I think, today a bigger realization that India cannot be bullied. And it's not just about one leader. There is a whole institution standing together and in the country. So it's not a question of replacing an Imran Khan and you find a regime change or some other factors taken in. So it's, while Mr. Modi is certainly at the helm, but he represents a current, a new way of thinking, a new Indian approach, which would be difficult to replace or change in a flash. And that, I think, gives us a strength where we cannot become arrogant, we cannot become overconfident, but it's important for us to stay the course. And to that extent, this is far more different, though people try to draw analogies with the old non-aligned movement. Non-aligned movement, really speaking, meant nothing. But here we are saying there is a difference between not being non-aligned and trying to be independent and interdependent with that. And that's the direction India is probably going at. Simultaneously, although it's not much spoken about, the China situation with its COVID, draconian lockdown, from all reports coming through, the economy is in very bad shape. So the world also realizes our relative strength in the post-Ukraine scenario, the post-COVID scenario. And that's why, it'll be more difficult to mess around with us. We are, of course, under pressure on the supply chain issues. Petroleum prices are hurting the country, raising inflation levels. We could have a supply chain disruption in edible oils because of the ban of Indonesia from exporting. But at the same time, the world is more dependent on India. We are exporting much more grains at higher prices. That's to a large extent not only offsets, but shows this interdependency which we were talking about. And that's something which all of us should realize rather than focusing all the time on what's the negative. Coming back to the internal scenario, we have, that big event of Prashant Kishore's fallout with the Congress. The courtship that was going on for a long time seemed to have abruptly ended. But many who analyze it say that it may not be the final curtains on it. They may come back to chat again and get back onto the talking table, maybe on different terms, because both perhaps need each other. One more than the other is difficult to, decide who needs more, whether Congress needs the Prashant Kishore kind of external consultant or external interventionist more than Prashant Kishore needs Congress both as a platform as well as a big client. But simultaneously, interestingly, Prashant Kishore has been working with a number of regional leaders, whether it is KCR in Telangana, MK Stalin. She was already talking to Mamata Banerjee. One doesn't know whether he still has got channels of communication open with Nitish Kumar, though an ex-associate of Nitish Kumar, Pavan Verma, is very much today as part of a team with Prashant Kishore giving interviews. But the interesting part of all these things is Prashant Kishore is trying to project each one of these regional leaders having a national potential. So KCR, MK Stalin, earlier Mamata Banerjee, everybody is coming on Delhi Darshan and they're trying to hoist the flags of their state there and making statements. So there seems to be some kind of orchestration, whether this gathers momentum, whether there is gelling that will happen before the elections, or this is more of Prashant Kishore's game vis-a-vis Congress and these people to make himself indispensable in the whatever future game or game plan that happens. One will have to wait and watch. Aam Aadmi Party, whereas, has been making very, very definite, taking definite moves in different states, most importantly in Gujarat, where it's set its eyes after the Punjab victory, though it's having some teething problems in Punjab in getting the house in order. There are law and order issues. Only yesterday there was riots in Patiala. There is farmers' protests happening. There there is a power crisis. All that is giving them some sleepless nights to start with, but they are seeing an opportunity in Gujarat, especially because Congress is yet to get its act together. Given all this, there is the anticipation, which I had myself written in one column, that BJP may be looking at advancing the Gujarat polls probably as early as mid this year to have a first mover advantage and not allowing the opposition to come together before December, if that's when the normal polls would have been scheduled for. At the same time, the other surround sound which we are hearing is about the Hanuman Chalisa and the Navratri, Ram Navami clashes which happened. Predictably, a list of over 100 retired civil servants have written calling out the dangers to communal harmony. And as expected, there is another 200 odd civil servants or 200 and more civil servants who have countered their allegation. But it is undeniable there is a certain, there is an attempt to raise the ante up on the recharge the atmosphere on some of these issues, and especially, the Hanuman Jayanti procession, talk of loudspeakers. These are very intelligently paid. This does not take directly any hit on a community, but you're raising issues of common concern, and which is difficult to deny its intrinsic merit unless you start deflecting into something else, saying that these were provocative, creating clashes, etc., and thereby trying to accuse the people who are causing it. But the opposition in some states, by opposition I would say the non-BJP actors, say Ashok Gehlot in Rajasthan, even Nitish Kumar in Bihar, and the Shiv Sena in Maharashtra have got themselves into a very tricky position. And sometimes by making statements there, like Ashok Gehlot has done yesterday, saying that, the government has nothing to do with it, let the religious leaders sort it out among themselves. Same as Nitish Kumar said something that government doesn't have to interfere in these matters. They're probably walking into this whole, a catch, which can, in days to come, and gain more momentum. Whether that's right, I'm not taking a stand. I'm not taking a moral position, but looking at it purely tactically, this is the direction in which it seems BJP will move forward come the assembly election and certainly 2024. So you have simultaneously also voices being raised about uniform civil code by Himachal, in Uttar Pradesh. The 370 issue was reaching again, being the temperatures are rising, not so much with an external point of view, but with Kashmir elections probably on the anvil in the coming months. So today we had a very surprising situation when the earlier deputy chief minister of BJP in Jammu and Kashmir came and paid a courtesy visit to Raj Thackeray in Aurangabad, where he's going to hold his rally today on the occasion of Maharashtra Day. And certainly Article 370 was on the table for discussion. Not that MNS has got any presence in Jammu and Kashmir, so even if they come on board as an ally, they're not going to make any difference electorally. But raising this issue in Maharashtra can give BJP a talking point going forward. So that seems to be the how the plot is emerging. Not particularly comforting, everything, especially with the temperatures soaring literally everywhere in the country, having perhaps the hottest April in a long time. So we'll all, as political watchers, we have to maintain our cool and see what's going to happen in the coming weeks. Thank you very much. See you again with another edition of the Ghosh Pod. Signing off, this is Sandeep Ghosh.